Hi, Zoe. How's it going?
Good. How are you, Jasmine?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for asking. It looks like we have a few folks here. So I will just go over some general housekeeping and then I'll let you jump in if that works.
Sounds
All right.
great.
So thank you all so much for joining us today for our free help session on Periscope. I am Jasmine Knighton. I'm one of the optimizers here at Vine Skills. I help folks get launched into Filevine as well as FVDA, and I help to bring you all free help each week with the help of my lovely colleagues like Zoe. I'll let her introduce herself in a minute, but just wanted to go over again some general housekeeping items. I'm going to be putting some helpful links in the chat. As some of you all may know, Vine Skills is a partner to Filevine. We help do all things under the Filevine umbrella, like Domo, Lead Docket, FVDA. So for those of you that have already been in Filevine or any of its systems, we offer optimization services to help, you know, adjust or make changes to the items that you already have created. Or if you're new to Filevine or any of its products like Domo, we can help implement those as well. So I'll be putting some links to our website so that you can easily access those web pages. We record these free help sessions every week, and they will be listed on our website, usually at the end of the week. You can also look to see what upcoming sessions we have as the topics do change each week. For you all, if you do have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A feature down at the bottom, and we'll get those answered in real time. Zoe, I think that's all for me. So if you want to take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jasmine, as always. All right. So today we're going to be talking about Domo, and we're going to cover some topics briefly about how to get reports connected from Filevine to Domo and what that process looks like, and then some of the behind the scenes, the backend work in Domo as well. So I will go ahead and share my screen to get us started. All right. This is a sneak peek, if you haven't seen it already, the new lead docket dashboard that was actually released at Lex. If you're wanting this, if you're live in Domo, we can put a request in this. Didn't mean to have that right up off the bat, but there you go. Okay, so first things first with Domo, whether you're live in it already or you're purchasing it and getting started, we need to get that data from Filevine. And so we'll start in the report builder there. And you'll notice we have various different reports in our sandbox here. Typically, when I create one for Domo, we'll just do a list of projects. There's obviously some pertinent data that we will need for every case type. And I usually select those right off the bat and get those added. And then you'll select your project type if you have multiple. I, of course, do in our sandbox. Let's do our PI template. This one's just fine. Okay. We'll get this data added to the report. On the criteria of the report, this is very important. We don't want to limit any of the data coming from Filevine. We always include archive projects, and that is it. That's all you're going to do here. We don't put any other criteria on here because we do all of that filtering in Domo directly. We'll let that report run. And it unfortunately can take some time, especially if you have a large number of projects in your Filevine org. Once this is done, we'll go ahead and save it. And I don't believe I have my AWS connected, but I can show you what that looks like as well. A part of the process will be to create an AWS account. So we use Amazon AWS buckets as kind of the middle ground. We get the data from Filevine, push it to AWS, and then from AWS, we tell Domo to grab it from there. While this is saving or running in AWS, we can run through that. You'll first create a bucket, and you can create one here, click create bucket. And this is after you already set up your account. And the details that you will need are going to be your bucket name, and the region here. Sometimes it's going to be US East 1, US East 2, or US East West 1 or 2. So this detail here will be needed for the credentials to connect in Filevine as well as in Domo. Once we have our bucket, then I would walk you through creating a user. So I typed IAM in the search bar and clicked on that hyperlink. We would go to users, create that user, and then create a user group as well. Once we have both of those created, you'll of course want to make sure that user is added to the group, but we add a policy here, Amazon S3 full access, to make sure that it's going to allow us to grab the data. And then we also create a key. So I already have one created for my sandbox 741 days ago. That's a long time. I didn't think I've been Domo certified for that long. And then you'll also get a key secret. That detail does not ever show again after it's created, but when you do create it, it prompts you to download that CSV file. So we usually ask that you email that to us, and that is needed for the initial connection in Filevine as well as in Domo. Once those are configured, so I'll do this. And get my report saved. Quick note on this, the naming convention I always use for my reports is going to be Domo, all caps, dash, and then whatever type of report it is. It's also very important here. I did a list of projects. Obviously, in our sandbox, we have multiple different types of projects. If you do as well, it's very, very, very important that we know what kind of projects these are. Is it PI? Is it criminal? Is it insurance defense? Is it immigration? Is it family? Something along the lines of giving us that detail. So we have as much information as we need in AWS as well as in Domo when we connect these reports. So I'll click save. And that can take a minute as well. All right, we're gonna hop back over here to, while we wait, I apologize for the jumping around, but I wanna make sure that we're maximizing our time. So while this saves, we're gonna jump back over to AWS in my other browser, and I'll go back to my S3 bucket. So when you click on that hyperlink here for the bucket, it'll open up kind of like a folder structure. Then you'll see additional folders here. Each of these correlates to one report from Filevine. If we click on one of those, it tells me exactly which report it is. So this one's my audit report. This one is a tasks report. This is a PI report, and this one is a settlements report. To get these connected here, so I actually don't have the option. We might have to get this turned on. We recently got a new sandbox, and I didn't see that anybody else connected reports from here, but there is a CSV tool that will need to be turned on if you don't have it in your org, and I can request that to happen. You also need to be an org admin to be able to use that CSV tool. When you do have it, it will show up here, and it'll ask you when you click on it. Let me see if I can sign into our old sandbox, because I think that would help. Jasmine, do you remember the URL?
Sandbox.filevineapp.com, I think. I don't think it was customized.
Let's see if it lets me. Oh, it worked. Okay. This will be better to show you. Let's try this one, created by Troy. There we go. Okay. The CSV tool. So it'll look like this. Under modify location, you'll see we've all used our old sandbox for connection. When you are ready to get this connected, you'll select configure new location and just call it AWS Periscope or something along those lines. The data connector is going to be AWS, and that's when it's going to ask you for that key, the secret, the region that I pointed out in the beginning, and your bucket name as well. You can go ahead and click save once you have that. And to make sure that it's all accurate, once you do have it selected, configured, you can do test delivery setting, and it will pop up with a notification here. It'll either give you an error or tell you that it worked. There we go. So that one worked. Once you have that, you can go to schedule settings. And this is very similar to if you were to do a scheduled auto report here for yourself to go to your email. We always select daily, and then you'll make sure this is for your time zone. And Filevine allows you to run reports morning, midday, and evening. However, these are not correlated to any particular time during the day. It's simply queue based. And so it's not guaranteed that this would run 8 a.m. every single morning or 2 p.m. every single day or 7 p.m. every single day. I generally recommend starting off with a one-time push every single morning. And I say yesterday's data will be in Domo tomorrow. And that's a nice foundation so that when you sign into the office, you can see that updated data from the previous day. If you're needing more frequent updates, we can definitely talk about doing that here and maybe do a midday push. But I would expect that evening is going to push after everybody's home and not entirely necessary. Also keeping in mind that your AWS account here, quick mention on it, when you set it up, it will require a credit card. And I explain it as an oil change. It's free for up to one of two thresholds, either free for the first year or free for the first 5 gigabytes of data. And after that, it's pennies on the dollar per gigabyte. However, more frequent pushes will get you to that 5 gigabyte threshold much faster. So just keep that in mind. At most, I would maybe recommend doing a morning and midday. You'll click save and then export here. I'm not going to do this, but when you do go ahead and click export, it'll confirm and then it will appear in your AWS bucket the next morning. If you do need to export as soon as possible, you can do that. And if I were to have it already set up as a schedule, you would see it appear after export. It won't even let me click it. Maybe here. As soon as possible. This is queue-based as well. So sometimes it's immediate, sometimes it can take an hour or 2 hours. And I will show you quickly the data connector report. If you're an org admin, then you can see that get pushed over. So that's connecting the report here. Data connector history. We just run it. I don't adjust any of the columns. This will tell you the last time your reports have pushed over. So it's always nice if you do an as soon as possible push, you can check this. All right, we've gone over creating the report in Filevine, connecting it to AWS. We now have a report in our AWS bucket that we need to get connected. You can often do this without access to AWS as long as you understand the convention here that AWS reformats your report name. I'm going to pop over to Domo and we're going to click on data. Up here at the top, we'll click connect data and connectors and type in Amazon. And we're going to use this Amazon S3 connector. Here again, it's going to ask you to set up your account. So you'll again put in that key, that secret, the bucket, and your region and click connect. Again, once this is done in Filevine as well as Domo, you don't need to do it again. However, excuse me. However, in Filevine, The team, whoever is an org admin and has access to that CSV tool, can also utilize the credentials that have been put in by somebody else. In Domo, it doesn't work that way, and you actually have to share the credentials with your team to give them access to use it. So although they could send a report from Filevine to AWS, they're not going to be able to see the same connection in Domo, and it'll actually prompt them to connect it again. I'll show you how we can share it. Once you do have it connected, it'll appear in the dropdown like this, and you'll click next. And it's going to have a series of windows here, and a lot of this looks like confusing, if I'm honest, but there's only a couple things you need to pay attention to. First is that file name. There's an asterisk next to it. That's a required field. So this is what we need that AWS report format for, and then the rest of it, you don't need any of that. So here, what I would do if I had access to AWS is you're going to copy and paste that first chunk up to that date and timestamp, including the last underscore. And that is the file name that Domo is looking for. If you use that same naming convention that I do for my reports, Domo dash or space dash space PI, it's a good rule of thumb that everything in AWS is going to be all lowercase. Spaces will be replaced with an underscore. Dashes remain the same. And so I can kind of assume what that name is going to be like if I don't have access to your AWS. So that's how I would go about it, just making sure that I know that naming convention. If you use a slash in your report name, that will also be replaced with an underscore. So just to keep that in mind, copy paste this, put it in there, click next. Now, this is where it's going to ask you what schedule should this be updating. So I always like to do 5 or 6 a.m. I'm in Colorado, so I'm going to use Denver for my time zone, and then replace. So as we're updating data in Filevine, we want it to replace the report here so that we see the most updated method or updated data. We don't really ever merge them, and the only report that we would append would be user activity, just so that we can get an ongoing look at that activity from Filevine. And that's it. That one would be appending. In Filevine, I guess let me mention this really quick as well. When I first get an audit report, this is just a nuance, so I apologize for hopping around, but it is important. When we first get the audit report connected, there's a series of fields that we need. On the criteria, you'll notice that it automatically has this log it date within the last 62 days. This is as far back as Filevine will let us go with the audit report. So typically I let it do this and get it connected to AWS. And then the next morning, after I get it connected to Domo, I come back here and I update this criteria to within the last 24 hours. And that's how we can get a good chunk of that data in there without just starting with the last 24 hours and just let AWS, let Domo append that data. So audit is the only one that's appending. All of the other ones are going to be replacing. Okay. We'll go ahead and click replace. Denver. Something's been funky about this lately, and it's not saving. But if I go back, it's there. I don't know why. Okay, this PI, what did I select? Audit report. So here I would actually append. I already have this connected, so I'm not actually going to do it, but you would name it here. This is what's going to display on the front end of Domo, and click save and run. Once that happens, it will appear here in just a second. Okay. You'll know that it worked by a number of rows here. If it didn't work, it'll give you an error and then you'll see 0 rows. Excuse me, I'm coming down from a cold this past week. Okay. We'll see our data here. So anything with the green Bucket, we know, is from AWS. And there's various other icons here for different tools in Domo. Oh, okay. We see this icon here. This is an ETL. If you're familiar in Filevine with report fusions, this is very similar to that. It allows us to take multiple reports and essentially fuse them together. And we can also apply criteria and formulas and filtering and different tools to manipulate that data and make sure that we're getting an output that would be best helpful. Sometimes this isn't always needed, but it is a nice tool to have, especially if you have multiple practice areas. Then we're likely using an ETL to combine those list of project reports. If you do time and billing, we always use an ETL to combine those billing reports and kind of bridge the gap of the Filevine reports and get all of that data in Domo to be most helpful. Okay. Usually when you get your Domo environment, it's going to be preloaded with a bunch of CSV files of demo dummy data. And the implementation is going to consist of replacing that data with your own data and updating the cards corresponding to make sure everything is looking and populating correctly. You can do a bulk change. So for example, let's find an easy one that we can bulk update. They'll usually start with demo. And it has 0 cards on this one, of course. Let's just take a look at one of these. Notes. Nope. I need one with cards to show you. Okay. So when you open it up, a couple of things. We can click on data and see every column that is on that report. We can look at the settings and we can see this is that file name if we ever need to edit or update, and we can look at the schedule of the report updating. We can also look at the history here of how frequently it has updated, and if it's failed at all, it'll show here, and we'll see a failed red icon, and we can remedy it if we need to. If you ever do an as soon as possible push from Filevine, Domo actually won't automatically update with it, and we'll have to tell it to run now. So that option here is in these vertical ellipses, and you'll select run now. And you can set up PDP policies, but I won't dive into that right now. Going back to this sheet, so we'll see that there is 20 cards currently connected to this data set. I can click on that data and I can bulk switch all of these to a new report. Okay. When you do select one, you're going to be under the impression that you possibly would break those cards, and that is totally fine. We'll just go ahead and pick a different report and choose data set, and it'll tell me that it is running and switch cards. This can take some time as well, just because there's a lot of data that it's trying to figure out if it needs to remap to the new report or not. All right, right off the bat, we see that this data set has been deactivated. This can happen automatically if the data isn't accessed in a while. And it's just very easy to get it kind of reconnected. This one happens to be somebody that isn't on the team anymore, so their account was likely disconnected. But usually there's a button down here at the bottom that says start. And if you just click that, it'll trigger the report to run. We now see this report with 33 cards attached to it. And this is usually what you can expect when you swap those cards in bulk. It'll show you every card and it'll say fix it. If I click on that, it takes me straight to the analyzer and it'll automatically tell me the things that are needed in order to fix this card. So previously it's saying that there was date treatment started here. I switched it to a projects report, so it's not going to have any medical data, but we could simply just choose a different date here that would make sense for you. And then case manager, we don't have that role here, so maybe we have. This one doesn't have anything on here, it seems. I don't know what project report this was. And there is a filter here. So this is likely causing me not to have any data. I can see that because there's an active funnel icon on it. And we can simply remove that filter. And that changed. So what this is now telling me is the number of cases I have per first primary. On the back end here, this right here is telling me what report we have connected, what data set. Down here under dimensions, these are going to be all of our columns. You'll notice ABC. So dimensions is going to be any date or text field or name person fields from Filevine. Measures is going to be any number or currency. And then calculated fields, we also call these beast modes. They're similar to Excel formulas and they allow us to manipulate the data even further. And we often use them to apply a value to a null or do a date difference calculation or any kind of other logic. Typically, applying a value to a null and the date difference are going to be the most common ones. And something like that would look like date diff. You'll use current date. And I don't think we have, oh, we do.
So Zoe, this would be good for
Ooh, you
folks that are
scared me.
like, sorry.
That made me jump. Oh my
Sorry.
gosh.
Would this be good? I know we get a lot of requests for like days in phase, or things like that. So for those of you that are like, I can't get this in my reporting, how do I get it? Domo's a great kind of option for that in this beast mode. Sorry.
Being sick has put me on edge. I hate how much I'm coughing. I'm so sorry for it. But yes, Jasmine, you are correct. So phase date is what I pulled in here. So this is going to automatically do that calculation for me of how many days a current project has been in a phase, and you'll usually see it called days in phase. When we do the implementation, you'll see a bunch of these beast modes or calculated fields already in place. And by all means, all power to you to copy and paste, create a new one, and change the fields just because you already have the format there and all you need to do is change the data. So we did the legwork and you can just copy paste and go from there. Very, very easy. Once you have it, you'll click the checkbox to save the calculation and always validate. You'll get a green check mark if it's correct. Sometimes it won't, and it'll tell you there's a syntax error or something like that. You can always email us. I like to use ChatGPT for my Domo formulas because although they're similar to Excel, they're similar to Filevine conditionalities. For example, contains isn't something that we can use in Domo in one of these, and it wants to see like, and then it'll often use like a parenthesis around whatever field it is. So just random formatting things like this, which I don't expect everybody to learn right off the bat, little nuances that you'll get under your belt as you do it. You'll click create and save and exit, and now that is ready to be used. So you'll see we have a bunch of calculated fields down here, and now I have days and phase. Okay, we talked about these. We talked about filters a little bit. Let's touch on those. Oftentimes, people want to filter by phase. And so I just searched in my columns, and everything back here is going to be drag and drop based. So you can drag and drop over here to the bar value and drag and drop to the filters. We can exit these out if we need to. And the filters here, if I don't want to see archived, I can select not in and remove archived. You could also remove admin, we can remove apps only, and whatever you select is going to be excluded when you have not in. This toggle here displays a quick filter is going to allow it to be a filter on the front end. And I'll show you what I mean by that. When we expand a card, it's going to be able to show you as a quick example that you can filter something out. If it's not there, it's not game over. You can still add the filter if you need it. But this is nice for convenience. And you'll select apply. Again, we'll see that funnel icon here that is telling me it is actively filtering something out. Otherwise, I'm going to put first primary back in here. I'll drag it over to the filters and we can just toggle it on and apply. So there's no filter that's being applied. We could also sort these. I want these to be in alphabetical order. I can drag and drop to sorting. I always choose no aggregation and ascending and apply. And you'll notice it's sorted by first name here. Couple other things on properties. This whole banner up here is going to reveal and hide certain things depending on the view that you like. So data table is going to show you your actual data down at the bottom. Filters, we can toggle that on and off. Properties, toggle it on and off, as well as our controls from the right-hand side. So properties, couple things to note. This is going to give you different settings dependent on the type of chart or card or table it is. There's various different things that we can do. For a bar chart, you can typically show the total. I had to change, for some reason that was a different bar chart and it wasn't showing, but show total label will be here. So then it will appear on the top. Also, if you hover, it will show there as well. If we want to take this one step further, I have a series option here. Since I changed the bar chart type, I can add the phase. So now I can see all cases per first primary per phase. So I can see that Nikki on our team has 372 projects that are in the lead phase. Whenever you make these changes, you can do a save just to save your spot if you need to step away. You can also do the drop down arrow and do a save and close. This will take you right out and pop you back into where all the cards are, and I'll show you that in just a second. Or we could do a save as, and this is similar to a Word document. It's going to create a completely new copy of this card. And when you do a save as, it'll ask you what dashboard you want it to be saved on. And then you can also rename it and provide a description. I'll do save and close. And when you do a save as on the dashboard that you select, that new card will always appear down in the appendix. It looks like this one doesn't have one. So down here, we have additional cards. So save as card will always appear down here. and we can edit it and move it up to the top, or place it wherever we would like. All right, so we looked at the back end, we looked at those filters and the quick select filters. On the front end, those appear here. So when we expand a card, we have filters. This one does not have a quick filter selected. Otherwise, it would appear here on the right-hand side and we could quickly select what we need. However, like I mentioned, it's not game over if there's not a quick filter. We can always add one and select here. For example, we want to see everything in demand and apply. This filter is not a sticky filter. So if I exit out, it's not going to remain filter here. And if I were to expand again, it would not be there as well. If I wanted to add a quick filter here, we could do that. And on the wrench icon here, edit and analyzer, and that will take us right here where we were previously. And I could then change it and add a quick filter. And I'll do a save and close. So now if I expand, we'll see phase there, and we can quickly select what we want to see. In addition to filtering on the card level, you can also filter at the whole dashboard. Right here in this banner, we can select a filter if I only want to see Amy. You'll notice it puts her name right here, and every card on the dashboard has a blue funnel telling me that it is filtered. And if you hover over it, it says filtered by paralegal name Amy. We don't have to scroll all the way back up to the top to remove it. This banner stays and we can remove it quickly. The other filter here is date. So if you wanted to see this year, this quarter, year to date, we could even look at last year or yesterday. This date filter is a sticky filter as well as these ones. What I mean by that, if I choose Amy and I say, I'll choose this month. I can see that it's filtered and there's no data. If I leave and go back, those filters remain. So they are sticky and they will stay. They also appear for other users. So if Jasmine were to sign in, she would see that there is a filter here for Amy on this month. It does not tell her who set the filter, so she wouldn't know, hey, Zoe, did you set this up? Is it okay if I remove it? It would appear for everybody and doesn't say who set it, but it can easily be set back. What else? Dashboard editing. So for example, we have an appendix card down here. Just like each card has a wrench icon, the dashboard also has a wrench icon. So this allows us to change the appearance and aesthetic of the dashboard itself. When I click it, we'll click Edit Dashboard. And we now have this banner on the right-hand side. So H is for header. If I drop this in, again, it's all drag and drop, and you'll notice the blue lines are going to act as placement of where this is going to be. Header is going to be medical provider bills, records collection. That's what it's going to look like. This next icon here is going to be a card layout. So if I drag and drop, it'll ask me what layout of cards I want. And then you'll fill in the spots. So if I select this one, you'll see I have four spots here, and I can add content from an existing card or create a new card. So for example, if I have one in my appendix, I can take it and drag and drop into one of those spots. You can also delete the blank space, or if we didn't want to use the spaces at all, I could have dragged from the appendix and you can just place it next to or wherever you would like. So those blue lines are going to dictate the placement.
Zoe,
If
sorry, there's a question. Do you use drill downs in your cards? If so, do you use one or more than one?
I do use drill downs, and I can get to that next. The drill path, typically, I've only stuck with one layer of a drill path, but you can definitely go deeper and do multiple drill paths depending on the data that you're trying to see. Um, that's a great point. Thank you for asking, and I'll show you in just a second. Um, Real quick before I jump to that, the placement of these cards. So you'll notice the blue line spans across the entire dashboard versus there it's giving me half. So it'll actually split the placement here between those two cards. Whatever changes you do make, if you like them, just click save. Okay. Also, really quick, you can change the size of the cards. I don't think I mentioned that. So when you click on the card itself, you can drag and drop and change the size. Okay. All right, drill down. I don't know if any of these cards would have it. Let's take a look at one of these, for example. So when you're drilling down, it's going to be in this expanded view. And placement of where you click is very, very important because it's going to determine what data you see or what filter it applies to. So down here, if I were to click on a phase, let's say litigation 101, this one does have a drill down, and I can tell you that just based on it went to a new bar chart instead of the table that Filevine or that Domo would normally produce. Whenever you do click, let me go find another one. Whenever you do click to expand, typically what happens is you see the table. And this is going to show me that it's filtered to not include archives. So I'm only seeing active projects, and it's where Trevor is the paralegal because I clicked on his name. This is standard without a drill path. It's just going to show me the entire report, every column that exists that's pulled into Domo, and you can scroll over to see all of that data. Say, for example, you don't care about the create date or the date of incident. Well, actually, you probably do care about that one. We don't care about the final close date or maybe the reviews at this point, and we can drill down and create a custom table of what we would want to see. And to do that, in this drop down, we can do edit drill path. If I want to add a view, it's going to take me here. So like that first one I clicked on, it had a drill path that took it straight to another bar chart. What might be more helpful is a table, and I can adjust the columns. So I want to see where the paralegal exists. I don't really care about the count. We can see the phase. Maybe we pull in the client name as that first column and date of incident, day since intake, just whatever would be most helpful to you. That way you don't have to scan through all 30, 40, 50 columns, and it's the data that you care most about. Once I have that, I can do save and close, and it'll take me right out here. Now, if I go back to that cases per paralegal and I expand, if I click on Carson, now it's going to show me that drill path table. Did that answer your question? Wonderful. Okay. You can do this in levels. Like I said in the beginning, you can have Do you know why the number of columns default to some? Um, Number of columns. Are you talking about if you add something, if I were to add a number and it defaults? If I put projected speeds here, I guess that one didn't default to some. Could you give more details? On the last drill down. Here? Previous. The days since intake. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Let me open up drill path. This one did default to some. I think sometimes it does it if it's a number or a currency field. Um, if you don't want it to sum, we can do no aggregation, but it doesn't change those numbers. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, sometimes adding it, like if I were to maybe projected fees. Yeah. If it's sometimes a number or a currency, it will default to some. I think that's a Domo thing. It's not a setting that I have seen, but it can be easily changed. So you can change it to no aggregation. Um, but again, here it's not changing what those numbers are putting in. Of course, happy to help. I will also note, so sometimes for cards that we're counting the number of active cases, you'll see us counting or using, if I hover over it, the client name. I'll also use project name if you have it on your report, or project ID. We're essentially looking for something that is a distinct value that's not going to be a duplicate. That way we can count and get an accurate number one for one. But for other numbering and currency amounts, I think it generally defaults to some. Good question. All right, I think I covered a good chunk of Domo tips and tricks in the process. Couple nuances here I'll go over. So when you first sign into Domo, you're likely going to see a buzz chat box over here like this. I always recommend collapsing it. You can do that by clicking the chat bubble. If we first sign in, it's actually going to take us to the overview dashboard. This is what it'll look like with your chat bubble open. And most folks expect something to happen when they click dashboards, but nothing happens, and you'll actually need to hover over that hamburger menu in order to see it, and it flies out. You can then pin it so it stays open. I like to keep mine collapsed. Under data, this is where we have our reports. So one Filevine report equals one Domo data set. So report data set are synonymous terms. Here, the only other icon I would pay attention to is this key. And this is what I mentioned about sharing those credentials. If I click on the wrench and see account sharing, then I can grant other folks on my team permissions to edit or use this. I usually just grant them an owner role. So Jasmine is now an owner. If I click apply, she'll get an email that she can now access this. And if she needs to, she'll also appear here so you can see it. But on that data screen, it's not going to ask her for those credentials, and it'll just be pre-connected for her. Under the More icon, the other item you'll want to pay attention to is Admin. This is where you're going to add new folks. So under People here, you can do Add New Person. You put in their name, their email, and you can grant them a permission or role here. There are definitions of those roles and what they get access to here. You just click on roles here on the side. The other thing to pay attention to is groups. Typically, everyone is automatically added to the default group, but I often hear from firms they want to have a lead docket group or a pre-lit group, or maybe it's paralegal versus attorneys, or however they want to split it up into attorney groups. And you can use those groups to give those folks access to specific cards or specific data points. You can use it. We can do PDP policies that basically says wherever Zoe is assigned as paralegal, only let her see that data. And it's a specific view just for that user that you put the policy on. And if Jasmine is my admin, when she signs in, she doesn't have that restriction. She can see all data. Also, similar to Filevine, when you add somebody, you also need to give them access to the data. So once you add somebody here, they're going to be automatically added to that default team. You'll also want to make sure they have access to the dashboards. And so back to admin under dashboards here, you can do a select all, or you can just say Zoe only needs access to case wrap up. Go to edit, and then here you have the options to add or remove owners, which if I'm just support staff, I don't need to be an owner of a dashboard, but you can add a user group to that dashboard as well. So this is where the group would be helpful if I was a part of a support group or front desk group or pre-lit group or something like that. Okay. I think that's about it of everything I can think of. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We're almost up on time, I think.
Yeah, thanks so much, Zoe. While we wait to see if there's any questions, if you all were like, we definitely need help with setting up our Domo, or we want to adjust and maybe get some new cards in there, feel free to reach out. I'm going to put my email as well as Zoe's email in the chat. It's just our first names at vineskills.com. Feel free to reach out to us and we can get you connected to an optimizer who can help with whatever your needs are. Again, if it's Filevine, Domo related, whatever, just reach out and we can get you assistance with that. I did also put a link to our webpage for Domo specifically, so that if you're like, okay, what does this like optimization really look like? You can take a deep dive into there. There's little blurbs kind of about what you can expect. And again, always reach out. We can do a discovery call to give you timeline and pricing for whatever you're looking for us to do. I don't see any questions that came in. So Zoe, thank you again so much for all your expertise. And even while you weren't feeling well, so I super appreciate you. For those of you that are on YouTube, feel free to subscribe and follow us on YouTube so that you can stay up to date with all the amazing videos that we put out. And we hope to see you in a future free help session. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.